convinced that it will create jobs. But I feel like, Africa, for instance, I don't hear politicians even talking about it. Earlier iterations of these coding agents, Cursor, Replit, it could do maybe like a 10-minute coding exercise or less before it, either breaks or loses context or something. But now some of them can do like a 30-minute task. Next year might be a half a day task. Then eventually, once it gets to a point where you can do a 24-hour task, then it's essentially an employee.
Honestly.
It's an autonomous.
One of the first projects I got, I tried to use AI to help me do the project. And I just put in one line. I asked it one question and it did everything perfectly to the point that there was no back and forth. I just copied the code, pasted it, and everything worked. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Since then, I have not coded.
No.
There's no point.
Someone made a very interesting point that in the future, it would be humans managing AIs. Eventually, the AIs might even manage themselves. Is AI a tool to amplify high life or Afrobeat, or does it risk diluting creative authenticity?
So there's going to be a lot more art that is being generated. You're going to see more media, more images, more photos. And now there's a question on, is it real or is it AI generated? We've created a tool that is supposed to help us connect, but the tool is actually pushing us to be more
more isolated, more depressed. Welcome to Exponentials, the podcast decoding our accelerated future. I'm William Intim here with Shareef Ali. We are two tech enthusiasts, investors, entrepreneurs, trying to bring our perspective to the global tech conversation.
Today we are starting with the biggest story of them all, the AI Tsunami. Is it a wave we can ride to prosperity or one that threatens to wipe us out?
I want us to talk about some of the recent news items in the world of AI, and then maybe we can dissect how relevant it is to the world and the ways in which it could bring upon some kind of exponential progress. We are starting with, the biggest recent news of them all, OpenAI's ChatGPT agent. I don't know, can you tell us a bit about the ChatGPT agent? Have you played around with it?
Yeah, so I've used it a couple of times in work, right? So I think for me, it just democratizes intelligence to a point that it makes delegating tasks very easy, right? And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example of how I have used it in work, right? Just a bit of context. We build tech products and solutions for our clients. And in doing that, we have different stages that we take our clients through. We start off by getting their requirements. So we usually build a sitemap of what the website is going to look like. And then we get the copy and the copywriting done. We put everything together and then we push it to design and development. I try the agent out with getting copy for the website. So after we aligned on the sitemap, I just uploaded a picture of the sitemap and I said, look, this is our client. Go and do research about that client and then come and build the what's it called? The copy, right? And I think it asked me some questions just to direct, the kind of research it's going to do. What kind of tone do I want? That kind of stuff.
Tune it to your...
Precisely. And guess what I did? I said, go and do the research and answer your own questions.
Okay, looking at a brief description of how the ChatGPT agent is described, separate from ChatGPT itself, describes the agent as, sort of like a unified system combining an operator's action taken with a remote browser, and also combining deep research and somehow synthesizing all of these things with ChatGPT's general conversational strength. So how is this more advantageous than, let's say, just using ChatGPT itself? I think, and how I would answer that question before I throw it back to you, is that I think it's in the name. They call it a ChatGPT agent.
Right.
In that it has a certain level of agency where it can go out and take do certain tasks for you. For instance, I would like to mention that currently I still feel like this is the first iteration of it. So it's not yet there where you can sort of delegate an entire task and say, go and do, okay, let's say in your company or in any business, you give the agent a task, go and file my taxes and then, do everything. It will likely make some mistakes. But I think where this is different is that unlike ChatGPT, where it's question and answer. This is more, I give you a task and it goes out into the world, well, via some sort of virtual remote browser, and it's doing these tasks for you.
Yeah.
And I think there's some advantages to that, obviously, for businesses. In the limit, your accountant could be an agent. And I also want to say that it's not just ChatGPT working on this. There are other companies. For instance, I looked a bit up on Perplexity's new Comet browser. So they are sort of looking at the same thing the agent is trying to do, but instead of it being like some remote virtualized environment, it's running on your browser where you can sort of give a command and say, summarize my emails. Then you open a tab, go to your Gmail, summarize the email. But it's like, okay, you have one pressing email from this person, and you'll be like, okay, reply with this. And I think we are starting to see the tea leaves of AI starting to actually become almost like a co-worker, like almost like an employee. And I think the implications of that are pretty wild. What do you think?
No, I mean, just a note on the browser-based agent versus the virtual environment agent, right? I think the browser-based agent is good for a majority of people that are just in the browser, right? But the virtual environment gives a lot more flexibility. I think with agents, it is more about the tools that are available to go and execute, right? And you said something, you said that we are not there yet. I disagree. I think we are pretty much at the beginning of that journey, because the things I've seen some of these agents do, it constantly blows my mind, right? You are able to do pretty much anything that is on the internet. And I think as these models mature and as the tools develop, it's all about tools. It's all about connecting a large language model to a tool. So if you have a tool that is able to file your taxes, for instance, the model just plugs into that and then it files your taxes. And you'd be surprised. A lot of the work that is done in this day and age is done online. So once there's a tool behind the screen, exactly. So,
but one thing that why I say that we are not there yet, even though I totally agree with you. I see the tea leaves. Like I'm very bullish on AI progress, but in the sense where like the length of task, and I think this is a very interesting metric that we can be tracking over time. Like how long of a task is it able to do? So for instance, I'll use some coding agents. As you know, I've been playing around with Replit a bit. I remember earlier versions of Replit agent, which is like, this whole agent terminology is being applied to
everywhere.
But I understand it as giving a task to the AI to go and do. It's not just question and answer. Like it's task and then go and do the task and revert with the solution or answer. And coding has been one of the biggest use cases. And earlier iterations of these coding agents, Cursor, Replit, it could do maybe like a 10-minute coding exercise or less before it, either breaks or loses context or something. But now some of them can do like a 30-minute task. Then next year might be a half a day task. Then eventually, once it gets to a point where you can do a 24-hour task, then it's essentially an employee.
Honestly.
It's an autonomous employee where your job is to
guide the agent.
Exactly. And someone made a very interesting point that in the future, it would be humans managing AIs. Eventually, the AIs might even manage themselves. The implications of this, okay, that's a deeper topic we could get into. I was about to touch on the deeper implications for employment. And what that means, because there's a big debate now on whether AI is going to create jobs or destroy jobs. And it's a mixed bag, because I've heard very competent answers on both sides. Although I see it very hard that some jobs will be still left on the table that AI can.
Bro, 100%. I think, with any new revolution, there are new jobs that are created, right? Look at what the internet has done. Look at social media. Now we have TikTok influencers. 100 years ago, if you go and tell people you are doing TikTok, everybody's going to look at you.
It's like some of our jobs now. People from 100 years ago will look at them like these aren't real jobs.
Precisely.
Like you sit behind a screen all day and you click. And then you get your paycheck at the end of the month, and it's like it's not real work.
It's not. And I think, look, it will definitely take some jobs away.
Without a doubt. It's very naive.
It's already doing that.
It's very naive to not
but
do that.
I think it's also going to create a lot more jobs that we currently do not know. And I think that's why we are trying to get this narrative out, because it's important that you follow these trends just to see how best you can stay relevant.
Exactly. Google also announced a major AI release focused on practical workplace applications, like handling your emails, data, documents, your meetings. They'll have that contextual understanding. And I brought that up because I find that with this release, they are very well positioned to sort of, I'm sure others are also. Microsoft also has a similar position in workplaces and enterprise. But I find it very interesting that these companies that already have access to your data seem best positioned to really, really develop that virtual employee for you. If all your data lives in Google, you run your accounts on Google Sheets, your documents are in Google Drive, you have your meetings with Google Meet, they could sort of weave together this intelligence that is just omnipresent throughout your business, where you can simply query and like, okay, what is the latest news for today? What is our bottom line? To reference the spreadsheets that it has. And I want your opinion on the kind of integrations that we could be seeing in the future. This gives a glimpse to that. I know you do a lot of work with Notion and N8N, and you use a lot of tools. So tell me, like, the synthesis and how it could play out.
So, I mean, you've seen Iron Man, obviously, right? And you know what Jarvis is like. So Jarvis is essentially a chief of staff for Tony Stark. Right? So Jarvis has access to pretty much all his information. He has access to his history, all his plans, and it's basically about access. Right. And I think what Google has over some of its competitors is that we utilize a lot of their services. Right. From their web search, from their sheets, their drive, their entire workspace. So being the company that is behind producing these models, and also the company that is behind producing these products, they have a certain advantage because they tie the two together, and they can create a seamless experience. Right? I think AI is slowly becoming more about context. Right? Having the model ingest the relevant context, and having access to these different applications provides that context. You see, so if you can ask it any question, what are my plans today? What did my mom say last week? It goes into your email, goes into your calendar. It gets the context,
everything, and it has the relevant context to your business that other
people won't have.
Exactly. So they have sort of like a structural advantage. I think Microsoft also has that with their whole 365 approach. And I know even some of these new startups, well, I don't even know if it's appropriate to call OpenAI a startup anymore. They are like, at this point, just raised at like 300 billion valuation. That's hardly startup territory. But they are also trying to, I know there are rumors of them working on their own workplace tools because they've realized the vulnerability there.
Absolutely. I don't think it's not just about the best models. We've had these conversations in the past where AI in the beginning was about the models. But now it's more about the products. They're becoming
commoditized. I've been saying this a lot, that the models are becoming commoditized. And you have the open source models coming on that. So if your moat is the model, it's not really a moat.
You don't have a moat.
It's the products that you sort of layer on top of the models that could give you some kind of moat. But this is the exponential podcast. So I want us to talk about the exponential angle of some of the things we've been gathering. The speed of this change is clearly not just another tech trend, this AI thing. It's a paradigm shift. So some points I want to touch on. The first is the fact that AI is going from a tool to a teammate. Like you touched on, the OpenAI's ChatGPT agent, in the limit, we can have a back and forth on whether it's there yet. But the fact is it will get there.
Absolutely.
If not end of this year, end of next year, the year after that, before the end of this decade, it will likely get there. And it's moving beyond answering questions to executing tasks independently. And clearly, this is going to have a profound change. And I think soon we'll be talking about our AI agents as teammates, as co-workers. We might have an AI CFO or AI CEO.
Funny you mentioned that, because I was actually planning on building, for my team, we have different roles and responsibilities. I was planning on building like a chief of staff agent that is responsible for
Yeah.
like the designer agent, the engineering agent.
Exactly.
So I mean,
Agents talking to
we're getting
agents,
there.
talking to agents.
Absolutely, we're
It,
getting there.
and that's one thing that I brought up the whole employment conversation because
Yeah.
let's be honest, like I don't want to mince words. A lot of jobs will be lost, and
100%.
I want to be hopeful and say that some jobs will be created out of this. Because I remember back then, they said the internet is going to, that will take jobs too. But then you have influencers. That wasn't a job, 20 years ago. But the social media revolution and the YouTube revolution made it a worthwhile profession for some. I'm hoping that we'll have similar outcomes here. I don't have a strong opinion either way. I want to be hopeful, but I do know for a fact that a lot of jobs are, if not going to be taken away by AI. I think off camera before we started, we said, if you don't lose your job to AI, you'll lose your job to someone who's using AI. If you are a business person and your competitor is using AI in the accounts department,
forget.
Or they're using it in marketing and you decide not to, it's going to affect you.
Look, I think I use AI extensively in my work, right? And the kind of stuff I've been able to do, I could not have done it without AI. You see all these tweets about that single curious mind with access to all these models. He's churning out a lot more than the people that aren't using these models.
Exactly.
And you see, it's basically leverage. AI is leverage. And the more curious people will be the ones that extract the maximum from AI.
Exactly. So some advice to the audience, definitely play around with the tools. We don't know where this AI world is going, but what we do know for a fact is if you're not keeping up with the tools, if you're not experimenting, if you're not seeing what works, if you're not exploring ways in which AI can make you efficient, faster, better, you'll be outrun by somebody who will.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to add to William, I'll share a bit of personal experience, right, with my mom. The first time I showed her what the ChatGPT product was like, she struggled to comprehend how it worked. It was like magic, right? And we've gotten her to a point that when she has board meetings, she just dumps all the context in there and asks, summarize this for me, give me key action items. And it's just making the workflow a lot more efficient. So as William is saying, we definitely encourage you to play around with the tools, get your hands dirty. If you have any questions, the tools themselves will provide answers, but we are more than happy to provide any support if you have questions.
Two other things I want us to touch on before we go to our one important segment of ours is the African/global connection. But before we touch on that, I want to make some comments on the rate of progress of these systems. We are we are past halfway of the year now. We are in August now. And you look at what these models look like in Q1 versus what they look like now.
Today,
it's exponential. It's highly exponential.
It is.
And I'm like, it's very staggering because now they're getting to a point where these frontier lab companies are using AI to improve their systems.
Of course.
And once the AI starts improving itself, I mean, who knows where this is going? So I just wanted to make a comment on that. And also, one thing I've noticed is that the adoption rate of AI is faster than previous technologies. I think I might be wrong. Maybe we can have a fact checkers check this at the end of the episode. But I think OpenAI was one of the fastest companies to reach some crazy statistic, which is like, it's insane. Like they got to a certain number of users even faster than TikTok. And that means if you're not really exploring it with this, it's starting to look like you're the odd one out. So you should, the adoption rate is very, 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 very quick. So now I want us to move on to our African/global connection segment. How does all of this stuff translate in for someone who lives in Accra, Lusaka, or Dakar? Like how does it actually help them in their day to day?
I think with the average Ghanaian or the average African who is not necessarily tech savvy, the traditional AI products may not necessarily suit them, right? Where AI can really penetrate this market is through voice agents. And I think there are so many companies that are already working on local dialects, embedding these into the models, and creating products that are very easy for the average African to use. I had a conversation with one guy who wants to build some sort of voice agent for like customer service, right? And I mean, during the discussions, we did a bit of research. We actually realized that Google does have some local language.
Voice models or text for now?
I think it's text models.
Still,
but they have like local language content,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And I mean, that just opened up a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
opportunities, because imagine somebody who doesn't even speak English, that doesn't have a smartphone, picks
Yeah.
up the phone and just talks to the model.
Funny story about that. I was playing with the Gemini Live voice mode. I mean, they
Right.
all have these voice modes.
Right.
And I spoke in Pidgin English, and it responded
In Pidgin, yeah.
It
It's
responded
like,
in Pidgin. So I was like, somebody who English, they might struggle with it as a first
Precisely.
language. You can still get some utility out of this. But one thing I'll push back a bit on what you said is, sure, the agents are important, but I feel like even now, an entrepreneur with a small business in, Lagos or wherever can use ChatGPT to come up with a marketing guide, business
100%,
advice. So
100%.
even before even getting to that agentic stage where it becomes
Yeah.
like a co-worker,
Yeah.
I still think there's a lot of usefulness that you can get.
100%.
You can let it analyze your sales report, tell you that,
Yeah.
here is my sales for the month of September. Can you give me feedback on what products did well?
Yeah,
Basically having like a top tier
Yeah,
analyst
yeah.
in your pocket. So
But you
I
see-
think
you see
that has some
something?
advantage.
For sure. You see, like this, your comments on this, right? They only apply to a very small segment of the
Small business
African-
owners.
Not necessarily, but educated people.
Fair.
Do you
fair,
understand what I'm
fair,
saying? People who have the knowledge
Yeah.
to extract
Yeah.
from these
Or even
tools.
in a position to find this type of thing useful. right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the majority of this continent does not fall into that.
One way I will say it could help those people is a lot of people now are using ChatGPT to learn.
True.
So
Yeah.
if let's say you are in some village in some remote part of Africa, but you have an affordable Android smartphone, you download the Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, or whichever AI app, and you can actually learn.
You can do a lot.
There's this cool product also from Google called Notebook LM that people are using to learn, and you basically upload some documents, and then it generates a podcast based on
The document.
the document, and then and that's a very intuitive way for people to learn.
Right.
And they launched a new feature recently where they do videos to accompany, so you can make a whole presentation.
Right.
So I do think that we are seeing the tea leaves of how it can also help us learn. But obviously,
sure.
the holy grail in our area, if some of these models could speak some of our local languages, and I think, maybe there's not enough incentive for some of these big companies to invest behind that. But hopefully, maybe we can have some African startups who pioneer some voice AI for local dialects.
Yeah.
But
It's
anyway,
cooking. It's cooking in the kitchen.
It's cooking.
But I mean, just before you move on, right? Dubai or Abu Dhabi, they invested in ChatGPT Plus subscriptions.
Yes,
for
I
the
heard about
whole
that.
country, right? And I mean, it's good you're speaking on education, because an investment like that is going to significantly impact the economic
Or
growth.
even if you don't want to do it for, the whole country, you can do it for students. Like this can come out of your education ministry's budget. Like, we are giving all students access to ChatGPT, access to their preferred AI, or strike some deal with
the
you can use it.
providers.
Because I sometimes I was asking myself the other time that, I mean, this might sound very blunt, but like, is there really an excuse to be ignorant on something now when you have all
Access
this knowledge?
to all of this,
You can ask, but this comes with raises up a very interesting point on whether these AIs are being truthful, honest, and because obviously they are going to inherit the biases of the developers.
Yeah.
So if the one developing the model has some opinion on some historical event, it could sort of tweak the weights and
100%.
get it to.
100%.
So I guess to end on this point, I think it all just this alludes to is that we need some models specifically for us Africans. It can be some open source model that we, distill down or modify to be more applicable to us. But I think we need to start getting some Africans, companies, and people with the interest of Africans in these, because we stand to benefit a lot. Because the reason I mentioned it could help us is it lifts the floor. So far, one interesting trend I've noticed about AI is lifting the floor in the sense that now I have access to the same level of business and analytics as somebody on Wall Street in my pocket. So me, the small business owner somewhere in Africa or Southeast Asia or wherever, the floor is lifted for me. I have that I can compete with you because I have the same, and I didn't have to hire some MBA grad to get that.
Absolutely.
So I do think that there's something to say about the fact that it's lifting the floor, and hopefully we'll take advantage of that.
So I will use myself as an example, right? I run a very lean team. We're very small, but we are a very high performing team. It is because we utilize artificial intelligence significantly in our operations. A lot of the things we've been able to do, a lot of the deals we've been able to close, a lot of the partnerships and conversations that we've been able to have are as a result of artificial intelligence. So as you're saying, it levels the playing field.
Think about how much you would have had to pay to get that level of resources. You're paying somebody like 80K, 100K plus a year to be your well-trained or highly educated person.
It's a lot.
And that's another thing, that the threat to job loss is not just an Africa thing. It's like a global thing where even CS grad, I still think people should study computer science. But like coding, computer science is more than just coding. But the coding element of it coding as a skill is becoming commoditized. It's like you have to, it's almost a golden age to be an entrepreneur now.
It is. You can do anything.
You get to use these tools and you are not at risk of, assuming you're not in some profession that is going to be cannibalized by, or some field that's going to be cannibalized by AI. This is a really good time to be an entrepreneur.
It is.
So I want us to move on to our next segment, which is cultural commentary. Beyond the code and the economics, this is reshaping our culture. And I want to talk about, authenticity and arts. If Google's AI, for instance, can generate music or visuals for a campaign, what does that mean for African artists or artists as a whole? Is AI a tool to amplify high life or Afrobeat, or does it risk diluting creative authenticity? Like how would you approach that?
I mean, that's a very, very interesting question. I think it's definitely going to impact the supply of these things, right? There's going to be a lot more art that is being generated. You're going to see more media, more images, more photos. And now there's a question on, is it real or is it AI generated? And I feel like it's becoming, the lines between these things are becoming very blurred.
I remember in January, I posted on X that 2024 was the last year where you can tell whether something is AI generated or not. And that, funny enough, that leads very well into the next point we're going to talk about, which is the post-truth problem. We live in a world where there's so many deep fakes. And there's this video going viral of some look like rabbits jumping on a trampoline, and most people couldn't tell whether it was real or not. And that is a problem. Like
it's a huge problem, especially for propaganda,
for misinformation.
You get me?
How it could impact politics. So I think there's something we need to get better at, being able to tell what's AI. Clearly, it's beyond the capacity of humans now. It has, it's past our level of discernment. But there needs to be something done about that. If not, it could be a problem.
I think it's very significant because, the dead internet theory.
Yes,
right? Which
it's just bots talking to bots. Nothing is real.
For those who
everything
don't know,
on social media. Tell
for
the
those
audience.
who don't know, it's a theory that says everything on the internet is being generated by bots, right? And with AI, we are getting a lot closer to that. A lot of the comments you see on Reddit and all these platforms are all generated by bots, Twitter, so on and so forth. The reason is because it's about engagement. Social media is now about engagement, and these bots are able to churn out content that is engaging. And then there's a company that is selling the clicks and all sorts of things. They are commoditizing us, But back to the post-truth problem, if we are not careful about identifying what is real and what is fake, there could be significant issues as a result.
One other issue that I want us to touch on, very much related to this post-truth problem, is the rise of scams. Now, there are some AIs where they could just take the audio of this podcast and synthesize your voice.
Yep.
Do a fake call to your mom. Say, Mom, I've been kidnapped. Send X amount to this account quickly. And it's becoming, and beyond just the voice parts, now with video generation, you could fake a FaceTime
You don't
call.
know what's real.
They'll look like it's you. One piece of advice I've been giving friends, and I guess I'll give it to the audience, is you and your family should come up with a safe word. If ever, and I'm serious, it could be, bottle, for instance. So that if, like, for instance, Shareef calls me, it's a video call. And then this might be like next year. We're not yet there.
In the future.
And then Shareef is like, yo, bro, Will, like, I've been kidnapped. Send X amount to this bank account right now, or they are going to kill me. And then it's like, okay, what's the safe word? Because the AI wouldn't know your safe word.
That's true.
So that's one piece of advice I'm giving the audience. Come up with one with your family. A safe word with your family. It could be anything. It could be laptop, it could be bottle. But like, so that in situations where it's a bit sketchy, be like, okay, what's our family safe word? And then you know that, okay, this is real. That's one of the simple ways we can.
William, you are scaring them. Don't scare them.
It's not about scare. I'm not a doomer. I'm not an AI doomer.
Of course. Funny enough, I think I'm a doomer, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But I'm just saying it's a great way to avoid scam calls.
Of course.
Especially among the elderly, because they are the number one target for these scammers. So tell your grandma, tell your grandpa, if someone calls and it sounds fishy, if I don't say a safe word, don't believe it. But anyway,
just on the scamming, right? I mean, even for the fraudsters here, right? There are all these products that allow them to carry out their job a lot easier.
To put it lightly.
You get me? And I think I saw one video on Twitter, some Telegram bot or something, and so it was like a voice. What's the word I can use? But it basically changed the guy's voice. So now the scammers in Nigeria sound very professional.
No, easily. It will remove your accent. It will like
completely.
It's insane.
And it's in real time.
And there are some filters that you can apply to your webcam that use some of these diffusion models, and it's live. But I'm talking, but it might make me look like you. So just want to let the audience know. Just be on the lookout. Be wise about how these things and don't underestimate the progress that is being made in AI. And that's very much related to the last point we wanted to have on that, which is how AI can mimic your voice or writing styles. But it's a double-edged sword, because you could, let's say if you're a writer, it could mimic your style and do something nefarious with it. But it could also help you accelerate your own writing. So like with most great tools, it's a double-edged sword. Okay, so next segment, the investing lens. So one interesting part about the Exponentials podcast is we want to add just a bit of some, I wouldn't call it financial literacy, but we want to just wake people up to the companies that are behind a lot of these trends and how you, the viewer, could capitalize on some of these gains if you are so inclined. I would want to state that, this is not financial advice. Do your own research. These are just our opinions. And I'll start with talking about some of the companies that we've even mentioned in this. We mentioned OpenAI. We mentioned Google. OpenAI have this interesting partnership with Microsoft. But all these names that we are mentioning, they are names people can invest in. Like, find your favorite brokerage app. And, look for Microsoft. And if you feel like Microsoft is the one to bet on because you believe in OpenAI, then you just invest in these companies, because you don't want to get left behind. There's a wave of compounding that's going to happen in the equities and the securities of these companies that are leading the AI revolution. And one big one is NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA is
everywhere.
Yes, NVIDIA is even just year to date, they are up like how much? Let me have a look. NVIDIA is up a crazy amount this year to date, but that's 26%, 25% year to date. In a 2-year basis, almost 300%. And this is happening with or without your participation.
Yeah.
So I just want to, get the audience thinking about just the things you use every day that you think are great products that are gonna lead us well into the future. Look up the companies behind, and I'm a big believer in investing in compounding over a long period of time. So, are there any other companies that you think are relevant?
Yeah, several. I mean, like just before I get into that, so just for those who don't know, NVIDIA is a company that provides chips, right? GPU chips, which is what is powering a lot of the AI technology that we all see. And just on that, the company that I would be investing my money in is Taiwan Semiconductor, right? Which is a company that powers...
I think we both hold. We both own a bit of TSMC. Yeah.
So basically, they provide the semiconductors that are in the GPUs that provide the large language models.
Exactly.
So there's a very broad value chain here in AI.
Yeah.
And as William is saying, we can benefit from it in so many different ways. By investing is a way that we believe a majority of people should benefit from.
Yeah, and like we said, do your own research.
Absolutely.
Maybe you come up with some stuff or discover some companies that we don't even know about. Because there are many players in this value chain. But one thing that we want to say, whatever it is, find companies that you believe in and invest and take advantage of this wave, and don't get left behind.
Yeah.
So as we near the end of this episode, I have some questions for you, Shareef.
Sure.
And I'll answer. You throw it back at me after.
Why not?
What was your personal first wow moment with AI?
I've had several.
But what was the one where it hit you and like, okay, this thing is about to change the game?
Again, I've had several. Is
so
that bad?
Pick the one that
I'll give you a few. Give you some context, right? So I'm a developer myself, in addition to the million and one things I do.
Yeah.
And I use AI extensively in developing my applications. One of the first projects I got, I tried to use AI to help me do the project. And I realized that there was a lot of back and forth. I talk to the AI, I tell it, okay, I want this, I want that. There were so many mistakes here and there. And I think this was when Anthropic released Sonnet 4, which is one of their models. And I just put in one line. I asked it one question to do something for me. And it did everything perfectly to the point that there was no back and forth. I just copied the code, pasted it, and everything worked. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was shocked because up until that point, there was always that back and forth, refining what comes back, asking it to change things. But it got everything one shot. And then I was like, wow. Since then, I have not coded.
No.
There's no point.
I mean, coding is going to become like, I feel the same way about, driving 10 years from now, where it's like the cars will all drive themselves.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be as much of a flex if you say that, no, me, I want to drive. Like, okay, then you just want to suffer. Like, so unless you are driving for leisure or something, then, maybe some sports car or something. But to answer that question, I feel like, honestly, it's similar to your answer where it's like, when I was able to just have conversations with it back and forth, and I'm like, no, this thing is keeping up with the context and the nuances of the topic that I'm discussing, is revealing some insights that I never thought of.
Yeah.
And on a practical sense, there was a time where I needed to draft a certain legal agreement, and I just told it the parties involved what we are trying to do, and it just spat out a very solid draft that even if you needed to get the services of a lawyer, you would need them for a lot less work because you've come with the rough first draft.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate this. This is word to the audience.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate this. This is real. It's transformative. You should really, really do your best to try and take advantage of it, and you'll be surprised. I was telling you before we started that I was with a friend last night, and he was like, he doesn't use ChatGPT. It's like, no, I don't use it. We were telling him like, yo, bro, it's not a flex. It's not a flex to be saying you don't use AI. Like it's no. That's like, you should not be proud of that. You should experiment with it at least to see what it's about. So if you are deciding to not use it, you are deciding to not use it from an informed point of view. So use AI and try it out, etc., etc. And
sure.
the next one, what's your wildest, most optimistic or pessimistic prediction of AI in the next 5 years? Any way you want to tackle that question.
So as you were speaking earlier, I mentioned that I'm a doomer when it comes to AI, which is
So
very
now,
ironic.
okay, now we can talk about that.
Yeah, it's very ironic because I love AI. I love technology. I'm biased. I'm a developer myself. I've seen the positives that can come out of AI. But if you look at what technology, so this is even beyond AI, this is technology, right? If you look at what technology has done to humanity, to society in general, we often focus a lot more on the positives, but there are significant negatives that have come as a result. So to give you an example, I saw a recent study on like mental health issues, right? And individualism in relation to social media, right? And we've created a tool that is supposed to help us connect, but the tool is actually pushing us to be more individual.
We're more isolated, more depressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You see, and the more this tool advances and, becomes a lot more powerful and comprehensive, the more it's going to push us into isolation
You make
and
such a good
individualism.
point. I'm not a doomer, but I 100% agree with that point in the sense that I think I might have written about this, but the gist was, now back then, if I needed help with something, go talk to my uncle, my dad, my mom, my friend.
Social connections.
Sometimes just basic questions, but now you don't need to do that. Like if I have a problem, I'll ask the AI, my preferred AI.
Yeah.
And what does that's a conversation I would have had with somebody else that could have led to something, could have fostered friendship. So if I'm not a doomer, but I do agree that that's an issue. I do agree that.
What are your thoughts? I mean,
on
this?
My main issue that I'm most pessimistic about is I don't see the conversations around how AI is going to eliminate jobs being taken seriously. I do think I can be convinced that it will create jobs, but I feel like, Africa, for instance, I don't hear politicians even talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this thing just blindside everybody before you realize there's no need for accountants. Then what's happening to all the people who are at, business school in Africa right now? Because I feel like if more awareness was made, people will even make different career or education decisions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pessimistic about. I am, optimistic about the abundance that it could bring 10 years from now if everything is automated. Think about what that would do for global productivity.
Yeah.
But if those gains, if there's no mechanism or structure for those gains to be distributed among the population, then we are in for like some
more
asymmetric, where all the value will accumulate to the NVIDIAs and the which is why you should buy.
Which is what's most likely going to happen.
This is why you should buy the
but this is not financial.
But this is not financial advice. It's just
Yeah.
But it's like, but that's the point I'm trying to make, where it's like a lot of the value is going to accrue to these companies. For sure. Even though, we own some of these companies, the Googles, the TSMs of the world, even then I'm still not comfortable if all the value accrues. There should be a mechanism in future to sort of, I don't want to say UBI because that whole conversation gets a bit, UBI for the audience is, universal basic income, which is proposed by some politicians that once AI gets to, or some thought leaders, I should say, once AI gets to a certain level of global productivity, then we could start taxing the companies who are accruing all of this and then redistributing the gains to the population. But that's one way to do it. There are other ways, like giving citizens ownership in these companies. That could be one thing. There was this really cool initiative that came out in the US recently where it's like, they're giving newborn babies brokerage accounts seeded with I'm sure it'll be seeded with the S&P 500, but imagine if it was seeded with AI companies and every child that's born at birth, you're giving maybe some shares of these AI companies. There are many ways this problem can be solved. But what I'm trying to make is we are not taking it seriously enough to have the conversation. We see it as this distant thing that is going to come one day. So I'm a bit pessimistic about that. But generally, I'm very bullish about the abundance that is going to
For
it's going to
sure,
bring.
for sure.
So, as you wrap up, Shareef, if you wanna.
Yeah, so our key takeaway is that the AI tsunami is here. Proactive engagement and a focus on skill is the only way to ride the wave. And as William has mentioned extensively, there are several ways we can all benefit from this wave. We can get involved with the tools, we can invest in the companies, we can uplift ourselves, and so on and so forth. So our job here is to encourage our viewers to get involved with AI as much as possible. We want to build a community of people who are enthusiastic about this. So if you require any support, I'm available. William is available. Our information will be in the descriptions. So yeah, let's all empower each other and ride the wave.
Yep. So thank you for listening to this episode, this inaugural episode of the Exponentials podcast.
Yes.
Follow us on all the relevant platforms where you love getting your podcasts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow us to get updates on our next episodes where we'll be talking about the AI engine room, which is the infrastructure that's going to be powering this. And we have a lot more cool and exciting topics coming down the line for you guys. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next episode.